Wow, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna do a little guide about tier 0 teams because somebody asked me in the comments, hey, do you have any tips of building the best tier 0 team that is out there? And now we're gonna do a guide about it. So if you have any questions that you wanna have answered, be it about the Overworld Arena or even Illuvium 0, which is dropping soon, by the way, you can check out the Illuvium Discord. We have the announcements, and I think it's gonna come out the next few days. So stay tuned for that. We're gonna do some Illuvium 0 content. I don't want to focus too much on Illuvium 0 because I'm not the best mobile gamer. I'm not into mobile games too much. I'm a computer gamer, right? So I want to stick to what I know. So I'm gonna mainly stick to Arena and to Overworld. But of course, we're gonna jump into Illuvium 0. I got a bit of land, and I wanna check it out at least and do some videos for you guys. By the way, if you wanna see a lot of Illuvium 0 videos, let me know in the comments below, right? Just let me know what you want from me so I can give it to you. Thank you. Alrighty, so jumping into this tier 0 guide. Basically, tier 0s are free-to-play units, right? You can jump in any tier 0 run without any cost, you can catch them for free, but you can still sell them on the marketplace for a little bit of profit. In the beginning, in the first week, this profit might be really big because people don't wanna, like, people who invest in the game and who pay money to play it, they don't wanna jump into tier 0 runs and do all this stuff and catch all the stuff and get all the chat packs and the boots and stuff that you get from tier 0. They want to just buy that off the marketplace to save themselves sometimes, to save themselves a little bit of time, right? So in the beginning, I think tier 0 will be very profitable for people who just want to grind that out for free. And later on, as there is a lot of people coming in, the price will drop, and we'll see. Like it's gonna depend if it takes 1 hour to get a supreme chat pack. It's gonna depend how much people are willing to sell that hour of their time on the marketplace, right? So, just going over tier 0s in general, we have the Doka, which is our fighter. We have the Atipo, which is our support. Then we got the Flish. This is the Scion. By the way, Scion is mage, support, empath, and fighter is a fighter. Pretty self-explanatory. Then we got the Volante, he is the rogue, the assassin, and then we have the Groko, which is the bulwark, the tank of the team. So that's our 5 different classes. The class is basically the job of the Alluvial. And then all of those units, all of those different classes, they are available in all the different affinities. So for example, we have Nature Doka, we have an Earth Doka, we have an Air Doka, and so on. Fire Doka, and what's the last one? A Water Doka. There it is. And that's the same for all of them. And if you think about building your team, there is 2 main things you gotta think about. I've talked a lot about this. It's the 2 basic main pillars you build your team on, and one of them is a tank, or tanks in general, and one of them is the damage. They need each other. And you need them to succeed in any arena game, in any overworld game. So without tanks, your damage will just be blasted away. They won't stand a chance against the enemy team because they will just die right away. And without damage, your tanks will just stand there forever and not be able to kill any enemy Illuvials. So those 2 pillars are really, really important, and without them, you cannot make a good team. The 3rd pillar is the support pillar. And this is not important for the overworld. We don't need supports at all. It's really, really good in the arena, but more so at later stages. At later stages, like at wave 20 or something, when there is 10 Illuvials on the board on the enemy side, and you have a lot of time and there's long fights, then supports really are really good. But they're only good once you have damage and tank on the fields. So that's what you're always gonna need first, and after that is done, you can bring in some supports. But we won't do that for the overworld, because overworld fights, they usually last, I don't know, 30 seconds or something. Everybody dies just in 3 auto hits, so you can't discard supports completely. I tried out the Atipo, it didn't perform well. Basically the fights are so short, nothing is even casting. Which brings me to my next point. The Scions, the mages, they are not really good either because the fights are so quick in the overworld that those Scions will never cast. And for example, if I scroll down to, where is it, a Seaforus right here, Seaforus is super good. But if it doesn't cast, it's not really good. It's all about the cast because it's a double Scion, it's an Invoker, right? So yeah, the Flish right here, our Scion tier 0 Illuvial, not really good for the overworld either. Really good in the arena, has a decent spot in there, but not for the overworld. Which brings us to the next point, the Volante the Rogue. Kind of the same thing, right? It's kind of a slow damage dealer. Like, it first jumps into the backline, then it needs to go to the enemy damage dealer or to the enemy target. And if there is no backline units, like no ranged units that sit in the back of the enemy team, the rogue will run around a lot, and also rogues do a lot of damage depending on their Omega cast, on their spell cast. So just by auto hitting rogues, kind of underperformed compared to the fighter. The fighter is by far the best damage dealer in the overworld when fighting other Illuvials, because the game starts and it's hitting, and that's what it's supposed to do. Every third hit it does extra damage and so on. And fighter really is the damage dealer you want to go for. Which also brings us to something else, which are, we press I right here, we can go in, which is the ranger itself, because this is our first unit and arguably our most important unit. And you want to craft yourself a sword. So when I started out, I crafted myself this Thorn Slayer sword. You can do this with just tier 0 materials. You want to also get some armor, but it's not that important. It's really the main thing you gotta look out for first is crafting your sword on your ranger, because then you have your first really good fighter. And once you have the sword on your ranger, then you can look out for having a second fighter, because we can bond our ranger with this second fighter, giving us double fighter and on our ranger, which is a berserker, which is really good in the overworld. So basically you want to have your ranger with a sword in there, you want to have your Doka in there. Also the stage 1 Dokas are really good. I ended up always playing the stage 3 Doka right here, the Earth Doka. But you can play around with it. There is no really super OP and super weak affinities. Like you can bring in the Fire Doka. And then when you bond them with your ranger, you get different stuff. You get like wildfire affinity, you get bloom, steam, all different kinds, and you can really experiment around with it. It's gonna be a nuanced difference. It's not gonna be a huge difference. So once we have our Doker, our ranger on the sword, what we need next? Tanks. Because now we have our damage, but we're still missing our tanks. And for tanks, it's the Groko. The Groko is our bulwark. It's our tank, and it's really good. I compared the Groko to like tier 3, tier 1 tanks and stuff like this, to a Flare, to a Scarabok. If you look at my team right now, I did the same thing. I have a Riplins in there, which is a fighter, a really good fighter, right? This just guarantees that I have the damage that I need. And then I filled up the rest of the team with tanks. And I filled it up with random tanks that I wanted to try out. But to be honest, the Groko is performing the best for the cost it has. The Flare was really good too. The Axodon and the Scarabok was kind of underperforming, because Axodon depends a lot on the cast, and the fight goes on too quick, it can't even cast. Kind of the same with Scarabok. Flare doesn't care too much about it, but on the Flare you have a fire affinity, which is not ideal for tanks. So at the Doka, where it was not really important which affinity it has, when you go over to the tanks, you wanna have a good affinity on your tank. For example, the Earth is really good because it gives you extra grid. So, and what is the other one? Resolve. So extra, you can say like armor and magic penetration, right? Armor and magic resistance. So it's a Earth Groko is gonna be more tanky than a Water Groko, because Water is all about regenerating mana, which is kind of useless in the overworld fights right now. So Earth Groko is really good. Nature Groko is decent as well. It will help him regenerate more life, making him more tanky as well. And I think the best one, like the best Groco you can put in, is an air Groco. Because air gives you dodge chance. And when your tank is dodging, it makes him live so much longer. So I think air Groco over earth Groco over nature Groco are your 3 affinities for your tier 0 tanks. And what I like to do is I like to put in a stage 3 Groco, for example this one, and then I'd like to put in a stage 2 Groco and then maybe even a stage 1 Groco. Meaning, because I already have so many good units in there. I have a stage 3 Doka, I have my ranger with a good sword, I have a stage 3 Groco, and usually that's gonna be almost already enough, and you won't need to put another stage 3 Groco. Most of the time it's gonna be better if you just put a stage 2 Groco to find that sweet spot of mastery points that you wanna invest. So I just wanna have the option of putting in like a stage 2 tank just to have get exactly to the mastery points that I need. If you wanna have like a safe team, let's build one together. So we're gonna press I to get in here. I'm gonna remove all my units with right click, escape to get back into the locker. And we have, by the way, here we sorted it by tier, so all the tiers are showing up. So first we're gonna bring in our damage, the Doka, and we want a stage 3 Doka. I only have the earth Doka right now for stage 3, so let's put him in. Boom. Next thing, we want the tanks. So now I definitely want a stage 2 tank, earth Groco, which gives us 3 earth once we bind the ranger with our earth Doka, giving us 3 earth stacks, and 3 stacks of an affinity is what we need to activate that effect of the affinity. So we're definitely gonna bring in an earth Groco stage 2. That's pretty nice. We're gonna bring in this stage 3 nature Groco, and then we're gonna have a look at our deck. So right now we have those. We have 2 slots left. You can bring 5 in total. You can also put an augment here in the middle support augment slot, which allows you to bring 6 Illuvials, but you don't need that. If you want to make sure, if you want to just stay safe, all you gotta do is bring more stage 3 stuff. So you're just gonna bring, to be honest, I didn't spend too much time in tier 0 because I wanted to find all the funny stuff. So here is another tier 3 Groco. Let's bring him. And one more. Like usually I would just put in an air Groco now. This one, the stage 1 air Groco. And right now, if you look at this, if I deploy all those units on the battlefield, I'm pretty sure it can beat anything. Anything I've seen so far. I haven't seen like a stage 3 Rampfire, which is kind of easy to play around, to be honest, especially if you have a right plans in it, even with the Doka and stuff. And yeah, this seems really safe still, but if you want to make sure, you just gotta swap out the stage 2 into stage 1 and just play 1 damage dealer and for stage 3 Groco tanks. Another option that you can obviously do is just bring another Doka, bring another fighter, because you know you want to have those 2 pillars, damage and tank. They should be kind of equally strong. It doesn't help you if you have only 1 tank but 5 damage dealers. Yeah, you know, like the tank is gonna die and then the damage dealers are in for a hard time, and same way the other way around. So right now we would play with 2 damage dealers and 4 tanks, but we could also go with 3 damage dealers and 3 tanks. That would be a viable option as well. For example, a deck like this, 2 Dokas and 3 Grocos. So in my opinion, definitely, I mean, Groco is the only tank we really got. So that is something we need to bring in, and the fighters are definitely the best damage dealers right now in the overworld. So something like this, and the safer you want to be, the higher the stages of the Grocos will be. And I would just recommend to put in like 1 stage 2 to... It depends, really. If you're going for a stage 3 run, a tier 3 Illuvial capture run, you might as well just put all the best Grocos and all the best Dokas in, just to be safe. You're able to beat anything. Because it could happen, right? You could have an encounter where there's like, I don't know, 5 Ramfires or something. Like a crazy, unbelievably rare and hard to beat board. And you want to be ready for that. So that's basically it. And you can apply this to all the other tiers as well. So it's not only about tier 0 that this tactic applies. If we go down here, so what do I want to have? I want to bring in some tanks. The Flare is pretty good. Still want to make the Scarabok work. And we're gonna bring in the right plants as our damage dealer, as our big Berserker. And once we bond our Ranger with the right plants, we have 2 Berserkers, giving themselves extra sustain, so that's really nice. What else? Let's see what we got in the deck. So we got our damages, we got our tanks. They are only stage 1 tanks, right? So it would still be nice to bring in something bigger. A Malura could be really good, but since it's a rogue and jumps in the backline, it's kind of a secondary tank and it's not really reliable. What else will we bring? Probably the Bulwark Stoic Lynx. It's a solid tank as well. Going more in the earth. The only thing with affinities, you want to stick more to one thing so you can maximize. You can really hit those thresholds. If you can hit 6 earth, that's going to be way better than, I don't know, 3 earth, 1 nature, 1 fire, and 1 air. Arcalion I didn't like so much. It's more the support. It takes some time to really work. Atlas, we can try him out. Axodon, it was okay. I would honestly, even if I build like a team with all my units, I would still bring the stage 3 Grokko. I would prefer to bring a stage 3 Earth Grokko or Fire Air Grokko. But even like, we got the Nature Grokko right here. I would probably bring that guy as well. Let's have a look. Do we have 5 already? Yes, we do. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 tanks, some big tanks, some small tanks, big damage dealers. You don't want to shy out on the damage dealers. You want to bring the biggest you have to pair with your ranger. And that's a pretty good team. Like that works out really well. If you want to know how to play on the battlefield, like what to position where and stuff, you can always check out older videos of mine. They are still perfectly valid about the arena. Like I used to make so much content about how to play the arena and everything about that. Even if you go back to the really old ones, in the beginning when I started the YouTube channel, I made like specific guides about positioning and everything. This is really for beginners, for if you haven't played an auto battler and stuff like this. And then as the channel evolved, also the content evolved, and it's a little bit more dynamic, just explaining you while I play the game, why I position stuff, where I position it, and so on. And if you want to have it specifically for the overworld, just the last few, all my illuvial capture runs, every time I go into an encounter, I make sure that I usually tell you exactly why I play stuff and what I do, so you can understand how it works. Alrighty, we are at the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It actually turned out longer than I anticipated it, but there's a lot to talk about, and I really want to make sure that you know everything that I know about it. So I spilled my beans, and I hope you liked it. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm sure you have already, but if you haven't, it's free, it's good, and it's gonna enable you to get some sweet giveaways in the future, because we have a lot of them planned for 2023. Much love out to you guys. Have a good one. I see you tomorrow. Peace out.